32 FM. Game On's Fantasy Football.
Hello, and you're very welcome along to another Game On Fantasy Football podcast. It is Game Week 32, I believe, and it is Friday as we record this, which means myself and Phil are in a better humour than normal.
It's Friday.
It is Friday.
Rather later than usual, I suppose, but I'm very happy to be here.
Yes, Phil is happy for a couple of reasons this game week, and one of the reasons is how well he did in the previous game week. Yes, the game week of game weeks, game week 31, went particularly well for our Phil McGrath. Anyway, more about that anon. Let us quickly remind ourselves of that mammoth game week 31. Now, rather than go through all of the scorers in every game, I'm just going to read you out the results just to remind you, and then we'll have a quick look at the dream team. I think that's probably the quickest way to do it. Chelsea 6-0 winners over Arsenal. That got the game week underway in the early game on Saturday. Then Cardiff City were beaten 6-3 by Liverpool in Cardiff. Everton beat Swansea 3-2. Really good victory for Everton. They seem to be able to pull things out of the bag. Hull City 2, West Brom 0, and Shane Long in action on and off the field there. Manchester City 5, Fulham 0. Newcastle United 1, Crystal Palace 0. Norwich beat Sunderland 2-0, who had a particularly bad game week. West Ham were beaten 2-0 by Manchester United. Spurs beat Southampton 3-2 rather, and that was a good battling victory for Spurs as well. Tim Sherwood was happy with the battling spirit his team showed. Aston Villa went down at home 4-1 to Stoke City, who rarely score 4 goals, as Mark Hughes admitted after the game. Arsenal were held 2-2 by Swansea in a disaster for Arsenal. That will ruin their that's their season. Their title hopes gone.
Not according to Wenger, it's not.
Yeah. Manchester United 0, Manchester City 3. Great performance from City, awful from Manchester United, as we've come to expect against the big teams. Newcastle United 0, Everton 3. Another good victory from Everton away from home. West Ham 2, Hull City 1, and Liverpool 2-1 winners over Sunderland, who, as I said earlier on, had a particularly bad game week. So what has that done to the game? I'd say it's done quite a lot, and young Phil has about 150 points extra after that.
Yeah, good week for me. Good week for a lot of people.
The dream team. Hart in goal with 13 after his 2 clean sheets. Dimichaelis, he got 20 points, and the much maligned Dimichaelis, he got a couple of clean sheets, a goal scored and a bonus. And Rosenior from Hull, he got a bonus and a goal scored as well, a bonus of 3. Skirtle for Liverpool did particularly well in the first game against Cardiff, where he scored 2 goals, and he also had an assist. So cracking game week, that one for Skirtle. Yaya Toure, he is the top scorer, 31 points, 3 goals in the first game, 1 in the second game, and phenomenal. Anyone who captained Yaya Toure, that will have done their hopes of glory no end of good. Ross Barkley, we weren't sure what was going to happen to the Everton midfield.
Yeah.
We thought Morales might get the 2 starts, but it was actually Ross Barkley, and for Everton fans, he didn't disappoint as well. He got 1 goal in each of the games and an assist in the first one, and a bonus of 2 also in the first game as well. Ericsson for Spurs just played the 1 game against Southampton. He had a great game though. He got an assist, 2 goals and a bonus of 3. So fair play with that at the last minute winner from Gylfi Sigurdsson. But Ericsson was the man of the match there. Much for Cardiff. He didn't get the win, but he did get enough to score 2 goals and get 1 assist. So great performance from him. And up front, of course, Lukaku on 18 points. And he got a goal in each of the games that Everton played in the game week. Sturridge also an 18 points, also with a goal in each game and an assist against Cardiff. But the top striker, no doubt, Suarez, he scored a hat-trick against Cardiff and got an assist and another assist then against Sunderland in the 2-1 victory. So that is the big game week 31 out of the way, thank God. I can get a breath now as we move into Game Week 32. Right, so victorious Phil comes back like Caesar. He arrives into Rome with the top scoring Fantasy Premier League team amongst friends.
I'm not sure I have too many friends left after.
No, this game isn't for making friends. This game is for winning. Yeah, yourself. Anyway, right. Let us crack on with Game Week 32. 3 focus games. The first one of which is at Manchester United. It's at Old Trafford, isn't it?
No. I suppose we kind of have to look at Arsenal and City, really. This, according to Arsene Wenger...
I was going to look at them. I wasn't just going to look at them later on. But go on.
This, according to Arsene Wenger, is the test for Arsenal's title challenge.
Is it?
Apparently, yeah. They need to win this game, otherwise they can bid their title challenge farewell. I would suggest that even if by some miracle they do manage to beat City, they still won't win the league.
No, they won't win the league if they beat City.
I mean, they have 2 wins, 2 losses and 2 draws in their last 6. 28 goals in 15 home games. They've only conceded 9 goals at home all season, and they've got 9 clean sheets, which is the highest home clean sheets record of any side in the league so far this term. City, on the other hand, they've 4 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss in their last 6, and they've scored 31 goals away from home. And they've only conceded 18 with 5 clean sheets. So I mean, it very much we know,
and particularly good form right at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can't argue with the form they're in. Arsenal are on the slide. City are on the way up. Not that they've ever been kind of down, I suppose, but I think there was a few questions asked after they lost to Wigan in the FA Cup, and obviously going out of the Champions League as well.
Will both teams score?
I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure. You're sure Man City are going to score, but you're not sure the home team Arsenal.
I'm not sure
score.
Arsenal are going to score. I have concerns over the Arsenal attack, or lack of, I suppose, at the moment. I mean, we heard Paul Scholes being quite damning of the Arsenal midfield in midweek, and Wenger kind of came out and said, listen, we live in an age where everyone's got an opinion, so some will go for you, some will go against you. We just kind of have to get used to that. But I mean, you can't really argue with what Scholes was saying. I think the Arsenal midfield haven't really stepped up to the grade this year, and certainly while Ozil's early form was good, he just hasn't really done it this season. Giroud is still popping up with goals. In all
fairness to Arsene Wenger, at the moment on the injury list in the midfield, Ozil, Ramsey, Wilshere and Walcott. Now, on most teams in the Premier League, and I'd include the top 4 teams, on most of even the top teams in the Premier League, those players would all be vying for a first team place. So you're dealing without 4 first team
no
midfielders.
Doubt that they have been unlucky in terms of injury, but I think if you look at the performances before the injury, I mean, Ozil was on the way down. Many had kind of suggested that Ozil's injury couldn't have come at a better time, given the fact that Arsene Wenger would kind of feel obliged to be playing Ozil, yet he wasn't really doing the job, and dropping Ozil would be something that, should the bad results continue, Arsenal fans wouldn't appreciate. But with him out of action, it's kind of softened that debate, I suppose. I mean, Cazorla is probably the only one really in the midfield that's shown any kind of grit and determination, as far as I can see it, for Arsenal. He has played well at times, but I mean, if we look at this from a fantasy perspective, which is, I suppose, why we're here, points wise for me, I don't fancy clean sheets for Arsenal.
Flamini is going to be available. That'll make a difference to the stabilisation of Arsenal.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at what he's up against, I mean, the City midfield is just... Yeah, I genuinely, despite the fact that City are on the road, which doesn't really worry me actually at all, you'd have to look. It's going to be a City result. I think Giroud is probably the only one for me this week if I had to have an Arsenal player who I'd have, because I do think City are still, they're still susceptible to conceding soft goals at the back, especially on the road this season. So I'd kind of have a look. Maybe Giroud's the striker there, but I mean, realistically, it's all City, and that's where you kind of have to look. Yaya is probably, there's no probably about it, Yaya's still the main man to have. We've seen what he was capable, especially with the hat-trick against Fulham. No, admittedly there were 2 penalties. Silva is a doubt going into this one. He picked up a knock. I suspect he'll be okay. Aguero is unlikely to be fit, and Nastasic looks like he's going to be out with a knee injury as well. So they're probably ones just to be aware of. I think a lot of people will have a City defender after the City double last week.
What about Dimichelis? I mean, he's a guy who's taking a lot of criticism.
And rightly so.
He looks a bit slow. He looks a bit lumbering.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot barge pole.
Good going forward, mind you.
Tap in, he got it.
But he was there.
Yeah, but you know it's a bad day when Di Michaelis scores against you. Come on, let's not give him any more credit than he really
All right, I was just
deserves.
looking to see was there any value we haven't spoken about.
No, listen, Zabaleta was the one. Was the one I was looking at going into the double game week.
You tell me how it is, Phil.
That's why I'm here. That's why you bring me here.
I know. Go on then.
Zabaleta for me is still the main one to have at the back. I think there's still a bit of uncertainty over the right back role at City, which is troublesome. I mean, I did point out last week going into the double that Kollarov's game time has been shared with Clichy, and that certainly seemed to be the point, with Kolarov playing one of the two and Clichy playing the other, which we kind of figured would happen. So Zabaleta for me is still the main one to have at the back. He's still 6.1. Yeah, it's a little bit pricey, but I do think you could look at him. I think a lot of people will have him. I'd certainly be playing him just on the off chance that Arsenal don't manage to get goals this week at home. Although really, when you're looking at all the teams and home fixtures this week, Arsenal have the second highest goal scoring record at home, but it's fifth in terms of goals scored at home throughout every team in the league. So it's not, while it's good in terms of the game week overall, it's not great.
Well, when you've only one striker, that's going to happen.
It is going to happen. Zeko didn't play the first game of the double, which infuriated many.
He did make up for it now against Manchester United.
He did make up for it against City. Negredo missed an absolute sitter against Fulham, and that really kind of probably tells you all you need to know there. I suspect that after his goal in the derby, it's 2 goals in the derby, should I say, that Zeko's going to play, and he'd be the one I'd be looking at for City really this week. I think he's probably the best man to bring in for City, and at 6.8 he's certainly reasonably priced. So yeah, and Zeko was where it's at. If I had Giroud, I'd play him, but I wouldn't be expecting loads for.
Would you get rid of Giroud and buy Zeko?
No, but if I was selling Giroud, there will be other strikers I'd look at, and we'll come on to that.
Okay, let's. Is that enough on this one? We move on to the next
of
our focus games.
I suppose you want to know where. Might help.
It would help. I like guessing.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go for Liverpool and Spurs.
Yeah, that's it, exactly it. I'm looking forward to this game. Last year's game was a bit of a cracker. It was 3-2 to Liverpool.
Anytime Liverpool play, it's a cracker at the moment.
In
all fairness, I think
people who've listened to the podcast over the years would know that I wouldn't be the biggest advocate of.
Well, we haven't been in years gone by because there hasn't been much to
advocate.
Been much.
In fairness, there hasn't been too much. No, this season there most certainly is. Yeah. And yet again,
Are you a big fan of Brendan Rodgers and his revolution? The Rodgers revolution.
I think you can't not admire what he's done since he's come into Liverpool. I know you're as a Manchester United fan, I'm asking searing questions of your personality. Yeah. But do you enjoy watching Liverpool play? A hell of a lot more than your own team. Unfortunately, I do. I do enjoy watching Liverpool play.
Yeah.
However, I didn't like the Sunderland game. No. I watched the first half and I actually turned it off.
Yeah. I think there was a little bottling moment, but they got away with it.
Listen,
so I think
it's also to be expected with so many games.
Yeah, and there's a lot. There's a young squad
Liverpool haven't been used to, obviously, because they haven't been playing in Europe. They're not used to playing midweek weekend. They haven't had that this year.
Yeah,
so they've been having a lot more time to recover. Whereas with the double game week, they haven't had that this week. So
but what they also aren't used to is they're not used to being 1 point off the lead.
I don't think that's I'm not going to get into that.
No, but as a squad, I think that this is a new pressure that they're actually having to deal with week in, week out. I think that shouldn't be underestimated. It might spur them on, and it seems to be sort of raising their game that even when they play badly or they have a little sort of a moment of doubt that they get away with it. But I think it's a fantastic job he's doing there.
No, yeah, listen, doesn't all credit. Credit to him.
Credit to the man from Antrim.
Where was I?
You're at Liverpool. You're about to tell us why we're going to load into Liverpool players here against Spurs, or not.
I also just like to point out the fact that once again I may have been right with a certain Mr. Gerrard. People, you just gotta listen to me.
On your advice, I captained him last game week. I wasn't particularly happy with the choice of captain,
Well,
but
that's considering that others around him did so well. But
yeah,
on a normal game week, you'd be happy with that.
on a normal game week, I wasn't. But anyway, so
yeah,
you're right.
Look at this one. Liverpool they've won on the last 6 games on the trot. In fact, they're unbeaten since the 29th of December when they were beaten 2-1 by Chelsea. They've scored 48 goals in 15 home games, conceding 13 with 5 clean sheets. Listen, Liverpool and clean sheets, they're not. I've said it before. They're not really there.
So are we? We shouldn't really have any Liverpool defenders the way they're playing.
I still have John Flanagan.
Yeah,
because he's cheap.
He is cheap,
and they're going to get some. They're just not reliable. I think there's other defences in the league that are far more reliable week in, week out. But Spurs, they've managed 21 goals in 15 away games. They've won 3 and lost 3 of their last 6, and they've conceded 19 goals away from home with 5 clean sheets.
Ouch.
So both sides have the exact same clean sheet record at home and away. For me, this is Liverpool all day long. It was always going to be. However, with Liverpool's frailties at the back, I do suspect that Adebayor could be one to have a sneaky punt on this week. But really, let's be honest, it's Liverpool. I think Gerrard is still a man to
You are a
at.
sneaky punt.
Yep. Thank you very much. Be careful how you say that.
Indeed. That's why I had a good breath before I did.
Whereas I can just say it flowingly.
Yes.
I think Gerrard is still worth a look, whether you like it or not. He is expensive, but I do think he's still worth a look there. And it's Suarez or Sturridge. For me, I've kept the faith with Suarez. I've been duly repaid. And I think you kind of have to look at it and say, yes, he is probably the better of the two at the moment.
He is, but if you have Sturridge, which I do, I'm thinking, do I want to spend an extra, what am I going to get? I'm going to have to put another 3.2 to it. I don't know. The difference between Sturridge and Suarez on a weekly basis, I don't think is worth that extra 3.2. I'm going to stick with Sturridge, and I'm going to keep that 3.2 elsewhere in my squad.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt. Listen, Sturridge.
But if I had Suarez, I'd be delighted with myself.
Sturridge is going to get you goals.
Yeah.
There's no point, no doubt about it. But
if I had Suarez, I'd be delighted with myself and feeling quite self-congratulatory. But
yeah, realistically for this one, I don't fancy Liverpool for clean sheet. I do think there's value in Gerrard and Suarez and or Sturridge. If I had to choose one, I will be going with Suarez. His stats over the last couple of weeks have been far better than Sturridge's. I mean, if we look over the last,
we said double the points, I think.
Yeah, well, if you look at over the last 4 games, okay, Suarez has 2 assists. He's 5 goals. He's getting a chance every 15.3 minutes. He's had 6 clear-cut chances in the last 6 games. And considering he's got 5 goals, that'll tell you his conversion rate is very, very good. He's had 11 shots on target over the last 4, which is pretty much the highest of any striker in the league at the moment over the last 4 game weeks. And he's also got, like I said, 15.3 minutes per chance, which is also the highest minutes per chance ratio of anyone in the league at the moment. And the only person to score the same amount of goals as him in the last 4 games, believe it or not, is Yaya Toure. But obviously he got that hat-trick against Fulham, and he picked up 1 against United, so he's got 4 in his last 2. But again, we're talking kind of strikers and specifically Liverpool here. So Suarez, for me, his stats are far greater than Sturridge is at the moment. And
Sturridge?
Yeah.
Cool.
At the moment, and that's why you'd be kind of looking there. I do think Tottenham will trouble Liverpool. I think the way Liverpool's set up with the diamond formation that they've been playing recently, I do think it is going to cause them issues. But for me, Adebayor is probably the one I would fancy to do a bit of damage there. I know we've seen Eriksen picked up 2 goals recently, but they've been few and far between. Adebayor is on a bit of a drought at the moment, but at 7.9, you think, yeah, we could see him. Now, he is rated a 75% chance of playing. He didn't play against Southampton. We expect him to be back and ready to run. I do think he could cause them problems, but it's a bit risky.
All right.
Outside of that, I'm not really touting too much from Tottenham.
All right. Let us move on to the third of our focus games this week in Game Week 32.
Yeah, I'm going out to the Cottage.
Fulham and Everton.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting choice. Start with the home team, because I think this is going to be a short conversation.
It will be a very short conversation. Fulham have only won one of their last 6. They've only managed 18 goals in 14 home games. They've conceded 31 goals in those home games. They've managed 3 clean sheets at home. Sorry, that's 18 goals in 15 home games. 3 clean sheets all season, and they've conceded more goals at home than any other side in the league.
Right.
Everton.
So Everton.
4 wins, 2 losses. Those 4 wins are in the last 4 games. They've scored 17 goals in 14 away games, which isn't loads. But I think this week we could see certainly a lot more. They've 5 clean sheets on the road this season as well. So certainly I'd be looking towards Everton. Obviously, as we said, Barkley was probably the surprise inclusion for the 2 game weeks that we saw. Did very, very well. His goal against Newcastle in particular was rather impressive.
Top class.
Rather impressive, shall we say. But
I was laughing at the vines, because they can only be so many seconds long.
And they kind of,
they couldn't fit the whole move in.
The whole goal.
Hilarious.
I did see that. All right.
So right, Lukaku from the top.
Yeah, it's an Everton clean sheet, so I think Howard is one to look at.
So we're getting rid of Giroud and we're buying Lukaku.
That's kind of,
that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, that's where I think you would be at, and that's why I was kind of mentioning if you were going to sell Giroud, I'd look to Lukaku. I had him in for the double game week. In fact, I've had him for a while now. He kind of disappointed me in patches, but the double game week, having picked up 18 points for me, I'm, more than pleased with that. And
yes,
as we mentioned top of the show, he was in the dream team, and I think going to Fulham, he's going to cause them all sorts of problems. I'm still worried, however, about the Everton rotation in the midfield, and that's
we got it. Well, I mean, the logic pointed to Morales for game week 31, but it was Barkley who actually got the double game week.
Having looked at the numbers and the time played, you would have to. I kind of thought that it would have been Morales, and now the big question is, can Barkley avoid the rotation? I mean, he was the only one of Everton attacking midfield 3 to start both of the double game weeks against Swansea and Newcastle. And with Morelos, McGeady, Deulofeu and Osman only given 1 start each over the 2, you have to wonder after his showing, is Martinez going to keep Barkley in there? Barkley got, as we know, he scored in both of those games. And you'd certainly have to suggest he's done enough to keep his place. But with Martinez, he did state that he was keen to rotate positions in behind Lukaku, and that was something we alluded to last week. It remains to be seen whether Barkley's really going to make it. I hope he does. I think certainly at 5.1, I think he's at now.
He's good value if he plays.
Let's not forget as well, if you take a look at Everton's fixtures.
Well, if you have Morales, which I do, you'd be 7.5. If he's going to be rotated, you'd be better off having the cheaper rotation.
Yeah, but let's not forget as well, if you look at Everton's fixtures, there's another sneaky double coming up in game week 34. They go to the Stadium of Light before welcoming Palace to Goodison. So, it's, it is difficult because we are kind of second guessing Martinez. Like I said, it's hard to say. I think the only one who is safe, and I did state it last week, was Lukaku. This one, I suggest if you were looking at bringing in Barkley this week, I try and hold out for as late as you can and see if we can get any indication closer to the deadline. Hopefully by this evening we should have some more clarification from the Everton manager, but it could be risky. That's the only problem with it.
All right, that was the 3 focus games. Next up, it's best of the rest. Right, we'll start with the game I thought might be on the focus games. The Manchester United at home to Aston Villa. Again, United, they get a result or 2, and we think they might have turned a corner, but no, they're in the same old field again.
Well, listen, they were always going to be beaten by City, so I'm not too disheartened by that. Well, I am, but I'm trying not to be. I kind of convinced myself before the game it was always going to happen.
But this game is against Aston Villa, so what sort of a Man United, what will they believe that they can actually beat Aston Villa? You would hope so.
Yeah, listen, going into this game, United will be confident, I suppose, of that fact. But for me, in terms of the United players to bring in, it's still only Rooney, really, to be honest with you. Could you look at United for a clean sheet? Possibly. I mean, in terms of goals scored at home this season,
Benteke, Vyman scored 2 against them last year. Was it last year?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of goals scored at home this season, United, as we said, haven't been great. But looking at Villa's away record when it comes to goals, they haven't been scoring loads either. But it is worth noting that of all the teams that are at home or that are away this week, Villa have actually conceded the fewest amount of goals. They've conceded the fewest amount of goals
They're
of all
tough on
the
the road.
teams who were away.
Yeah.
And if you compare that to all the teams over the course of the season, Villa are in second place in the league in terms of goals conceded away from home. So when they're losing, they're generally only losing by the one, or they're not conceding buckets away from home. And I said it here a couple of weeks ago. The way Villa are set up, they are set up to play better away from home. And even going into the Chelsea game, I did say it to you. I said Villa will play as the away team going up against Chelsea, despite the fact they're at Villa Park, and we know what happened there. So I wouldn't get too ahead of ourselves suggesting that United are going to run.
They're
riot.
good at parking the bus and then trying to nick it.
Pretty much. I think it's probably a little unfair of the way Lambert has them playing on the road, but yeah, if you're looking for an analogy, I suppose that's probably the most fitting one.
Can I throw you one at you?
Of course you can.
The next 3 fixtures of Villa, right after the Manchester United game, which is tough at Old Trafford. You got Fulham in Villa Park, and then Cardiff City away. They're 2 games that Aston Villa can win after this. So I submit to you, Aston Villa's most informed player, Fabian Delph, 4.4. Just saying, it could be. He is the most informed player for Aston Villa, and at that price, he does make an attractive squad player.
Yeah, listen, certainly he's one that fits the mould that you could put on your bench. And
Scored
bring in and
23
out.
points in the last 3 game weeks.
Yeah, he's a goal and 2 assists.
He's fast. He's good. I've been watching him from his Leeds days. He was always buckets of potential. He seems to be finding a bit of it.
Yeah, I know I don't sound too magnanimous
No,
in
you
my
don't,
agreement with
but-
you. However, you are right in what you're doing there. You're looking outside the box. It's that point
Thanks.
of the season where you've got to start looking at these teams around that you wouldn't have looked at generally. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Villa are safe. I don't think there's any fear of Villa going down. I don't think they're going to be.
Do you think they're in danger of being in that middle gloop that at the
That's-
end
that's the
season
problem.
just fizzles out early?
that is the problem? And the only thing I will say,
Although they're not safe yet, they're only 34 points, so they still need to get a couple more points in
I
the
think
bag.
36 points this year will be enough. To
It
keep
might
you
be,
safe.
but they'll still want 2 more victories. They'll want 2 more victories, and they'll be saying Fulham at home has to be 3 points. That's
Yeah.
what Paul Lambert will be saying.
Well,
And
if
he'll
you look
probably
at
be
if you
saying the
look
same
at it,
against
like
Cardiff.
now.
They got to get
Villa-
safe as early as they can.
Yeah, I think Villa are probably going to be safe, right? But if you look, they're up against Fulham, who are still fighting, Palace, who have to fight, Southampton are grand, Swansea, are still there. They're still in the mix. I listened to an interview with Neil Taylor, and he was like, we're not too good to go down. We're still a young team. We could still go down here. And Hull are in the same boat. I think they're only 1 point ahead of Palace, and they're still in the mix. And then you've got City, who are going for the league, and Tottenham, who are going to want to try and secure. I don't think it's going to be as easy as you would make out. I think Villa will be safe, but I wouldn't be expecting loads from them. But you're right, though.
I just think
at something like that.
I just
isn't a
think
bad
for the
idea.
next couple of game weeks, he'd be a good one to have. He might be worth ditching after game week 36.
I know, for Fulham and Palace, bring
Yeah.
him in for those. Yeah, listen, and then you're like I was saying, you're right in doing that. You need to start looking for some differentials from other places that you probably wouldn't have considered throughout the season to try and make up ground on those around you. And he's not a bad one. And at that price as well, you can afford to leave him on the bench. I wouldn't be expecting too much from him, but certainly if he can chip in with another goal or assist, as he has done over the last couple of weeks, he might be certainly worth the investment. But for this game, for me, really, it's Rooney is the only one for me.
Grant.
I can see Villa getting a goal, but I can't nail it.
All right. Next game, Crystal Palace and Chelsea. Crystal Palace, we won't go near against Chelsea, I presume. Are you going to bring in a Crystal Palace player?
Not at all.
No.
No. Listen, Chelsea have scored 23 goals away from home this season. That puts them in 5th place in the league standings overall in terms of goals scored on the road.
Etu's been in good form, but he's a hamstring injury.
Yeah, he went off after a couple of minutes against Arsenal. Hasn't been seen since, really. Chelsea have picked up 6 clean sheets away from home so far this season. That's the second best away record in the league. They've conceded the fewest amount of goals on the road this season, conceding only 14. And really, when you look at goals scored at home, do you know how many Palace have scored this season?
At home?
Unlucky for some.
13?
13 goals is all
Yeah, I
they've
was going to
managed
say
at
it's
home.
under 20, but yeah.
13 goals is all they've managed.
Wow.
So it's a Chelsea clean sheet. It's Hazard in the midfield. He was the one I said don't sell, even though he doesn't have a double. He still came in with points.
What about Schürrle at 6.8?
Schürrle.
Andre Schürrle. Schürrle.
I think Hazard's the only midfielder worth having there.
Yeah.
Well, certainly, if you didn't have Hazard,
Well,
and
if
your budget was restricted. Yeah, listen, you could look to.
All our budgets are restricted. What
you
world
know.
do you live in?
I don't know. Yeah, I live in the world where I'll pay anything for Hazard.
All right.
Take Schürrle's hat trick against Fulham out of the equation because it's against Fulham.
Yeah. Good game against Arsenal as well.
Arsenal were down to 10 men.
He did.
Now I know he scored while they still had.
Scored and an assist as well.
Arsenal were poor. I was going to say something else there that can't be said on radio, but yeah. Outside of that, he hasn't really done a whole lot. And you look at his game time has been very, very limited.
SH1T.
No, that's not what I was going to say. It was probably worse than that,
Right.
so we'll keep moving.
Horlicks.
Okay, fair enough. We'll settle with that one.
Or some hot drink. Maybe
Yeah.
Ovaltine.
But his game time has been very, very limited, and that worries me greatly. And at 6 points, what's he, 6.8?
8.
Yeah, that's a lot of money to have. That's a risk. I think it's Hazard all the way. I think it's a Chelsea clean sheet. I'd be looking towards the likes of Cech. Certainly Cech will be a good goalkeeper to be looking at this week. I think at the back, any one of them, to be honest. It looks like, Cole is injured, so Azpilicueta at 5.6 is the cheapest way into the Chelsea rearguard. And certainly if I was looking to bring in a Chelsea defender, and as you so rightly pointed out, with the restricted budgets, he's the cheapest option in there. He's still going to get you the clean sheet points. He'd be the one I'd look at. Hazard in the midfield all day long. And up front, yeah, listen, I don't fancy Torres. And I do suggest we may even see Dembaba get in for a game. Because I reckon Chelsea will want to shift him on. They're going to try and give him a bit of game time toward the end of the season so they can get a better price from him. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some game time towards the closing stages of the season when Chelsea have the game won. But I think against Palace, I think you can afford to play Ba. If Edo's going to be out, we're not sure exactly for how long Edo's going to be out. It's saying here the 5th of April. I wouldn't be too sure about that. Torres hasn't really been scoring. I think he's going to rotate a bit. So just bear that in mind. You might see a bit of Ba. But
A little bit of Ba.
But yeah, I wouldn't be bringing in Torres or Ba.
All right. Okay. Right. Well, let us move on to the next one. Southampton Newcastle. It's an interesting tie.
Newcastle
this one.
disappointed me in the double. I actually brought in Moussa Sissoko, just hoping I might get something from him because Remy was out injured. He'd be kind of playing in the hole. Didn't get a whole lot from Newcastle. In fact, they were lucky that Cisse got the last minute goal against Palace in the first of the double game weeks, and that goal actually cost the bookies 13 million, believe it or not. Because
I think it's the bookie one of the worst weekend for
they've
bookies.
had,
Yeah.
because all the favourites won.
Yeah.
Yep. There was no coupon busters.
My little heart bleeds.
Southampton.
Little heart bleeds for them.
2-0
Did you ever
up
see a bookie on a bike?
No.
Just a thought.
Southampton 2-0 up against Spurs.
Yeah.
Lallana and Rodriguez. Listen,
I think that was the straw that broke the bookies back briefly.
possibly so. I think Lallana is still probably the best one to have a look at there. Newcastle haven't been scoring goals. We know that. I think Southampton clean sheets you can certainly invest in this week. I wouldn't say it's a banker, but I'd be fairly close to it. So I mean, you're going to have, most people are going to have their Southampton defenders already. It is worth noting, however, that Klein has a groin injury and he's going to be out of action. So if you've got him, you may need to do a swap.
Can't play football either. Go on.
And Rodriguez is a bit of a doubt going into this one. 75% chance. We know what that usually means. He should be all right. But certainly Lallana, having got back on the score sheet last weekend and picked up 2 bonus points. That was his first goal in 6 or 7 weeks actually. So thankfully he's back scoring goals. Hopefully that can keep him going now, because he's going to be pushing obviously for a place on the plane to Rio. So I think that's actually another point worth noting. Well, Southampton are one of those teams that I suspect will linger in mid-table and should be fine. There's 3 or 4 of them there playing for a place on the plane in the England squad. You've got Lambert, Rodriguez, Lallana, Shaw at the back as well. These guys are going to be pushing for places, so they expect them to still be going hell for leather despite
and for transfers as well.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of speculation about where certain players might be going. It's probably a bit early, or it's not quite late enough in the season, I suppose, to speculate just
there's
yet.
a lot of heavy speculation about Shaw already. All the big clubs across Europe lining up from Real Madrid say they're confident they're going to sign him. Lallana, a lot of noise around Manchester that
there is.
They want him. Anyway, let's move on. Free scoring Stoke City at home to Hull City.
First time they've ever scored more
Let's
than 4
everyone
goals
sell all the strikers
4 goals away from home.
and buy Peter Odemwingie.
Nah, before I go
nah.
any further, I think it is worth just mentioning and noting that we can wish Alan McGregor all the best. After his injury picked up last weekend, he's in a high dependency unit with kidney problems. So from all of us, we hope he gets better.
Indeed.
But going back to the football, Stoke, I'm not really. There's not a whole lot really in this one for me between Stoke and Hull. I don't really think a whole lot. I mean, Hull have conceded 23 goals away from home this season. That puts them in mid-table and 10th in terms of goals conceded away from home. Stoke scoring goals at home, they don't really feature. They're not banging in goals.
No,
they're not.
Check out. Just put on your mental watch list rather than on the Marko Arnautovic. All right. Just keep an eye on he has changed things a little bit for them. I'm not saying buy him. I'm just saying watch what he's doing he seems to be linking up a lot of the Stoke midfield, and he seems to be giving them a much more offensive threat. Anyway, that's just something to note. We've spoken about Hull strikers.
Well, I wasn't wrong about Shane Long getting a goal against West Brom, was I?
No, you weren't.
You kind of knew that was going to happen. It was never a penalty. He won the meter. But listen, for me, I think this one, I'm probably just going to leave it alone. If I had a Hull player, I'd throw them in, but I wouldn't be bringing anyone in from Stoke, and I wouldn't be bringing anyone in from Hull.
All right, let's move on to Swansea Norwich. You spoke about Swansea just a second ago, a team that isn't completely safe, so says their manager, and they still got a couple of points to win. You'd have to think they're worth the 3 points here.
Yeah, Norwich's defence away from home hasn't been great, as we've alluded to many times over the course of the season. If I can I'll go to Norwich first, because I actually want to talk about something when it comes to Swansea. Snodgrass is a man I highlighted a couple of weeks ago, saying that he had the right stats, he just wasn't getting the goals. Now he's starting to convert. He may be worth looking at when the fixtures are a bit kinder, but actually, to be honest, when he has home fixtures. Away from home, I don't really look to him for too much, but certainly at home, he seems to be doing the job on a 5.9. He could be the one to look at. I mean, if West Brom at home in game week 33, Liverpool in game week 35, and then Arsenal in game week 38. Fulham away from home in 34. I mean, there's 33 and 34 are probably the best. Oh man, this is terrible. Actually, I didn't realise those words came out of my mouth, and now I'm looking at the fixtures, kind of going, Jesus, no.
Yeah. No, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very
terrible.
tough. Yeah.
Norwich face Liverpool at home, United away, Chelsea away, and Arsenal home. They're the last 4 games.
The last 4 games, yeah. So they have to do it all now. These are the weeks they have to do it.
Swansea, West Brom, and Fulham. Really, okay. Spring Snodgrass in for the next 3 weeks, but after that, ship them out.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Ow,
yeah, they've got the worst run
that.
in. Yeah, they have the worst run in.
Do you know what? I didn't cop that till now.
And that's basically people are saying Norwich's season ends 4 weeks before everyone else's.
Yeah.
So they have to. If they're going to save themselves, they're only on 32 points now. If they got to put more,
46 will probably see.
Yeah, but you need to get them up. You need to get them up now. And Swansea, they haven't been. We don't know what's gone on there over the last few months.
No, well, Swansea are 6th in terms of goals scored at home.
Thanks to Boney.
With 26 goals.
Yeah.
But they've also got the. In terms of the teams at home this week, they've the 3rd best clean sheet record. Now it's only 5, which is actually 10th overall in the season. And it is worth noting, clean sheets this week are going to be a bit tricky. 7 out of the 8 top home defences in the league are away from home. So all those home teams that you normally back for clean sheets, 7 out of the top 8 are away from home this week. But really, when it comes to Swansea, like I said, I seen the interview with Neil Taylor, and he said, we're not too good to go down. And one of the big things is that Michu was back. He got his first start in Tuesday's draw against Arsenal. That's his first start since game week 16 after he had his knee surgery back in December. And Swansea are only 5 points clear of the danger, like we said, and certainly his goal scoring attributes could come in very, very handy. 8.4, it's a decent price. That's the problem with it. But Swansea have Hull, Newcastle, Villa and Sunderland to come after Norwich. So certainly Michu could be a cheeky outside punt for managers looking to get a bit of a differential. So just keep him in mind this week.
Keep an eye and see does he look good after his injury.
I'm always, like I said, I'm always sceptical of players who are coming back from injury. He had a game, he got some game time, he got 60 minutes under his belt against Chelsea. So I'd be looking hopefully to see a bit more from him.
Here's two teams in deep, deep trouble. West Brom on 28 points are at home to Cardiff City, who are on 25 points.
This is a 0-0 draw.
Okay.
And I shall tell you why, shall I?
Yes.
West Brom have only managed 16 goals away at home this season, which is the second worst goal scoring record behind Palace and Sunderland, like I mentioned, who only scored 13 at home all season. And Cardiff away from home this season, they've only managed 8 goals, which is the worst record in the league away from home. So neither of these teams can score. So certainly if you have a Cardiff defender, I'd suggest you could put them in there, because I don't think West Brom will score and I don't think Cardiff will score.
Stats sound like it's 2-1 to me. 2-1 to West Brom.
I'm going with the 0-0.
All right.
It's boring.
Let us go to the only game left. It's Sunderland and West Ham.
Yeah.
West Ham, who booed their team and their manager after a victory the other night. Interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I mentioned Sunderland already. They're very much like Palace and West Brom, struggling for goals at home. They've only managed 13, like I said.
They got that initial bounce from Gus Poyet, but it's levelled off.
It's fading fast. They called Connor Wickham back there. He played against Liverpool. Okay, they pushed Liverpool the last bit of the game. Key got a goal. They kind of pushed on a little bit.
They did.
I do think that Liverpool probably could have got another one if they really needed to. West Ham, of course, on the other turn of the coin, they're not scoring goals away from home. They've only managed 12 on the road this season, but clean sheets away from home, they lead the way with 7. They have the most clean sheets on any other side away from home. I would be looking at West Ham perhaps for a clean sheet. And dare I say it, Andy Carroll could be a sneaky punt. I know I actually mentioned him for the double game week for West Ham. Didn't really come out, but I think he could cause Sunderland some issues. Listen, this is the type of game where I wouldn't be bringing players from either in, but if I had some West Ham players, I'd play them. It's one of those games I wouldn't bet on. No, we could go. That could go either way. Certainly could. Yeah. All right. That is best of the rest. Next up, let's double our points. It's Captain's Picks. Right. So again, one of these weeks where things aren't quite too clear cut. But there's one or two things that spring to mind. There certainly are. At Anfield. Let's start there. The House of Pain. Yeah, listen, let's get Suarez out of the way. Certainly he is one you can have a look at going into this one. Manchester United. Rooney. Wayne Rooney. Eden Hazard away to Crystal Palace. Or Sturridge or Suarez for Liverpool. Right, okay. Let's have a look. You're kind of Rooney was the one you threw at me. Kind of that. Rooney from Man United. Van Persie's still out. Chelsea away to Crystal Palace. Whatever Chelsea player you have. Liverpool at home to Spurs. I mean, you could make a good case for Everton as you did earlier on. I'd be convinced by that too. Rooney has a habit of scoring against Villa. I think he's 8 goals. He usually scores 2 against Villa. I think he's 8 goals against them over the course of his career. But he is the only one really pushing. He could be certainly one to look at as a captain against Villa. Although, like I said, the way Villa play and the fact that they've conceded very few goals away from home, that it will put me off. Hazard against Palace is certainly one to look at. But we do know that Tony Pulis has Palace defensively solid. Chelsea there's solid, and then there's Chelsea. Listen, Chelsea are steamrolling at the moment, and there's no doubt about it that he is one to look at. Suarez / Sturridge against Tottenham. Certainly, we know Liverpool have managed 44 goals at home this season, which you can't really argue with. And I suppose for that reason, you've got to look at one of those against the Tottenham side, who haven't kept too many clean sheets on the road this season. So I'd be looking towards them. But for me, I think the outstanding candidate this week is Romelu Lukaku. Going to Craven Cottage. I think based on his performances over the top of game week, and given the fact that Fulham just can't stop conceding goals, Everton are playing well, he'd be my standout captain. So if I had to put them in order, I'd probably say Lukaku, Hazard, Suarez / Sturridge,
Rooney.
And then Rooney would come in after that, yeah.
Alright.
Had I to take a cheeky outside punt?
Yeah, give us a bit of cheek.
Bit of cheek. At this stage of the season, why not? We go for a cheeky outside punt to Lallana against Newcastle.
Oh, shocking. Right, that is Captain's Picks. Right, Game Week 32. Only a couple left in the season. Thank you very much to Phil from FantasyPremierLeagueTransfers.com. Check out that site from Fridays, which is today. Yes, for all the weekend previews, rumours, gossip, team news,
it'll all
suspension
be going up
news.
As the day goes on.
That's it. So check that out this evening. Everything will be up. And obviously on the Twitter tomorrow, live time, #live time between 10:30 and 11:30. And Phil will try and give you some last minute guidance and advice, depending on what the rumour mill is telling us.
Absolutely.
All right, Phil, thank you very much for that. And we shall see you for Game Week 33.
Sloan.